The ground shook under heavy steps, and the air felt tight with waiting. No one spoke as the young war dragons moved across the wide training field. Their scales reflected the cold lights above, and their eyes stayed forward. Every trainer watched closely, hands ready, faces calm and proud. This was a place where mistakes were not allowed. Near the edge of the field stood a human girl named Elira Voss. She was small compared to the massive creatures around her. She wore no armor and carried no tools. She was not a soldier. She was only there because someone said she could observe. Most trainers ignored her. Humans were not important in dragon training. They never had been. The signal sounded, sharp and clear. The dragons began their test. They moved in lines, stopped on command, and turned together. Everything was perfect. The lead trainer smiled. His confidence was clear. These dragons were trained well. They obeyed. Then something changed. One young war dragon slowed its steps. Its name was Kareth. It was younger than the others, smaller, but still large enough to cause fear. Its wings shifted slightly as it looked away from the line. The trainers noticed at once. The lead trainer raised his hand, ready to correct the mistake. But Kareth did not return to formation. Instead, it turned its head toward the edge of the field. Toward the human girl. The air seemed to stop moving. Elira felt eyes turn toward her. Her heart beat faster, but she did not run. She did not scream. She stood still, hands at her sides, unsure of what to do. Kareth stepped out of line. Gasps spread through the observers. This had never happened. War dragons were trained from birth to follow commands without question. Leaving formation was unthinkable. "Recall command," the lead trainer said, his smile already fading. The command was sent. Kareth did not respond. The dragon kept walking, each step slow and careful. Its heavy claws pressed into the ground, leaving deep marks. The distance between Kareth and Elira grew smaller. Trainers reached for control devices. Some shouted warnings. Others stood frozen. Elira felt fear rise in her chest, but she stayed where she was. She could hear her own breathing. The dragon was close now. Very close. Kareth stopped. Then, to everyone's shock, it lowered its body and sat beside her. Not in front of her. Not blocking her path. Beside her. The field went silent. No alarm sounded. No attack came. Kareth's wings folded in, and its long neck curved slightly. Its head lowered until its eyes were level with Elira's. The dragon did not bare its teeth. It did not growl. It simply sat. The lead trainer stared, his confident expression gone. His hand trembled slightly as he lowered it. He had trained dragons for decades. He had never seen this. Elira swallowed hard. Slowly, without thinking, she raised one hand. She did not touch the dragon. She just held her hand in the air between them. "It's okay," she said quietly. Her voice shook, but she spoke anyway. "I'm not afraid." No one had taught her what to say to a war dragon. The words came from somewhere deep inside her. Kareth blinked. The dragon leaned its head closer, stopping just short of her hand. Warm air flowed from its breath. Elira felt it, steady and calm. Her fears softened into something else. Curiosity. Sadness. Understanding, though she did not know why. Behind them, trainers argued in low voices. Some demanded action. Others said to wait. No one wanted to be the first to move. Kareth shifted again, then slowly rested part of its head on the ground near Elira's feet. It looked less like a weapon and more like a tired creature that had finally stopped running. The observers could not look away. Sensors showed strange readings. Kareth's heart rate had slowed. Stress signals were dropping. This made no sense. Dragons only calmed when isolated or restrained. Elira lowered her hand. She did not touch Kareth, but she sat down on the ground beside it. The stone was cold beneath her, but she did not care. She crossed her legs and looked at the dragon. "I don't know why you came," she said softly. "But you can stay." The words carried no command. No control. Just permission. Kareth let out a low sound, not loud, not threatening. It was almost gentle. The lead trainer felt something tighten in his chest. He realized, with growing unease, that the dragon had made a choice. Not because of training. Not because of fear. Because of the human girl. Around the field, people began to understand that they were witnessing something that should not exist. A war dragon had ignored every rule and sat beside someone who had no power over it at all. And in that quiet moment, as the galaxy's strongest creature rested calmly next to an unarmed human child, everyone present felt the same thought rise in their minds. This was not part of the test. This was something new. The field was still quiet after the shocking moment. Kareth stayed on the ground beside Elira, its massive body relaxed, but its golden eyes alert. Trainers whispered nervously to one another, unsure of what to do. The girl was safe, but the dragon's choice had broken every expectation. War dragons were built to obey commands, not make them. Elira looked at Kareth and noticed its scales had small scratches and marks from training. She wondered if the dragon was tired or hurt. Slowly, she reached out her hand, not to touch, but just to show she meant no harm. The dragon's head moved closer, its warm breath brushing past her fingers. She could feel the strength under its skin, yet there was no threat. Only curiosity and calm. "Why is it doing this?" a young trainer whispered, his voice trembling. "It should attack or return to formation." The lead trainer shook his head. I don't know. I've trained dragons my whole life. Nothing like this has ever happened." His face was pale, and the usual pride in his eyes was gone. Something about this moment felt wrong, but he could not explain why. Elira spoke softly to Kareth. "I don't want to control you. I just want to understand." She did not give commands, she did not shout. She only spoke like a friend might, calmly, quietly. The dragon tilted its head as if it understood. Its tail moved slightly, a small, gentle sway. No one had ever seen a war dragon respond like this. One of the observers, a scientist, stepped closer. "We need to study it. Immediately. It could be dangerous. Or, it could be a breakthrough." Her words were cautious, almost afraid to disturb the unusual peace. Elira looked up at her. "It's not dangerous. I promise. Kareth isn't going to hurt anyone." The scientist frowned, unsure what to believe. Humans had always seen dragons as weapons, not companions. And yet, here was a human, calm, and a dragon, calm, together. Something was happening that no one understood. The trainers debated whether to separate the dragon from the girl. One argued firmly. "We can't let it sit there. What if it attacks later? What if it decides to destroy the equipment?" Another trainer shook his head. "It's not aggressive. Look at it. It's waiting. It's listening, not attacking. This is new. We have never seen dragons react to humans like this." Elira noticed their fear and decided to speak again, softly, with a gentle tone. "You don't have to worry. I'm not going to hurt you. I won't take anything from you." Kareth's head lowered a little, closer to her. Its large eyes blinked slowly, like it was deciding to trust her. The trainers and scientists watched silently. Even the youngest assistant felt something stir inside, a mix of fear and awe. They had seen war dragons fight, chase, and obey without question. But this was different. This was a choice. Kareth was not following orders. Kareth was responding. The girl sat on the cold stone, her small frame dwarfed by the dragon's size. She crossed her legs and leaned slightly back, letting the dragon's presence fill the space beside her. She could feel its warmth and steady breathing. She did not reach out again. She did not try to control. She only spoke. "Do you want to be friends?" she asked quietly. Kareth's ear-like frills twitched. Its eyes studied her face. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it moved closer, nudging her gently with its head. The trainer stepped back, uncertain. This was not training. This was a bond forming before their eyes. "Could a human really bond with a war dragon?" one scientist murmured. "We've never seen anything like this. Dragons are tools, creatures of war. They obey. They do not choose." Elira tilted her head, watching Kareth. She could feel its curiosity, its caution, and something else. Something deeper. She did not name it, but she understood it in a way words could not describe. She spoke softly again. "You don't have to fight. You don't have to be afraid. I'll just sit here." Kareth lowered its massive body fully to the ground, curling slightly, its tail resting near her legs. The dragon did not make a sound, but its eyes reflected something like relief. It seemed tired, not from battle, but from always being forced to obey. This moment, small and quiet, was different. It was freedom. Trainers and observers could not take their eyes off them. Some scribbled notes frantically. Others simply stared. The girl and the dragon had created something new, a connection no one had ever thought possible. It was quiet. It was simple. And yet, it was extraordinary. The lead trainer finally spoke, his voice low. "We have to understand this. We cannot force it. We cannot command it. We have to let it decide." The words were heavy. They carried the realization that humans had been underestimating their own influence, not by strength, but by presence and understanding. Elira smiled faintly at Kareth. "I don't know why you chose me," she whispered. Maybe you just needed someone who listens." The dragon blinked slowly. Its massive head nudged her shoulder gently, a soft gesture of acceptance. For the first time in the training ground's long history, a war dragon had chosen a human, not by fear, not by command, but by quiet trust. No one knew what would happen next, but in that moment, everyone understood something important. Strength did not always come from power. Sometimes, it came from understanding. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the field. Kareth remained beside Elira. Neither moved. Neither spoke. And yet, the bond between them was clear to anyone who looked. It was fragile, new, and impossible to ignore. The trainers and scientists whispered among themselves. Questions filled the air. Could humans truly influence dragons without force? Could trust replace control? Could a simple presence, calm and patient, change what the galaxy had always believed about strength? Elira, still seated on the ground, watched Kareth's breathing slow. She felt no fear now. Only a quiet certainty. Something had begun today, something that could change everything, and it had started with a single choice, a dragon choosing to sit beside a human girl. The observers slowly realized that nothing would be the same again. And Kareth, the young war dragon, rested at her side, as if saying that it agreed. The days after Kareth sat beside Elira were full of questions. Trainers, scientists, and even visiting officials watched carefully, trying to understand what had happened. The young dragon no longer followed normal routines. It refused to move without looking at Elira first. It refused commands, yet it was calm and patient. The trainers were confused. They had been taught that humans were weak. They had been taught that dragons could only be controlled. Now, everything seemed wrong. Elira returned each day to the training ground. She did not bring tools, weapons, or food. She only walked quietly, letting Kareth see her before approaching. Sometimes she sat on the cold stone. Sometimes she knelt. Sometimes she just looked at him. Each time, Kareth responded with calm, letting her presence guide its actions instead of force. The scientists began their tests. They scanned Elira for unusual traits, any hidden power that could explain the dragon's behavior. But there was nothing. No secret energy. No genetic modification. Just a human girl with simple courage and patience. They asked questions. Do you feel a special connection to dragons? Do you command them in your mind? Elira shook her head each time. I just listen. That was all she said. That was all she did. The trainers argued. This is dangerous, said one. She cannot control him. She cannot stop him if he turns violent. Another shook his head. She is not controlling him. Look closely. She does not command. He chooses. This is new. This is impossible, but real. The tension in the air grew. The lead trainer called for a council to discuss the situation. Officials, senior trainers, and scientists crowded around a long table. They spoke of war dragons, obedience, and human limitations. Humans were never meant to bond with dragons like this, one said. We built dragons to fight, not to form connections. Elira listened from outside the room. She did not need to be told she was different. She felt it every day. Not stronger than anyone. Not smarter. Not faster. Just different. She cared. She noticed. She waited. And somehow, that was enough. Kareth continued to respond. It followed her footsteps, but not like a pet. It walked beside her, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, but always aware. When she knelt to examine a mark on his scales, he lowered his head gently. When she spoke softly about things she noticed, his ears twitched and his tail shifted. It was communication without words, understanding without force. The trainers could not comprehend it. They had spent decades teaching dragons to obey through commands, through fear, through repetition. No one had thought to try patience. No one had considered the power of being understood rather than controlled. The scientists scribbled notes furiously, unsure what to call it. They compared brain activity, heart rates, and stress levels. Kareth's readings were calm, unlike any dragon ever tested. Elira began to notice the change in herself as well. She had spent her life small and careful, always quiet and careful not to disturb anyone. With Kareth, she did not feel small. She did not feel powerless. She felt present. Her voice mattered, not because it commanded, but because it listened. Her hands mattered, not because they held, but because they offered reassurance. She understood, finally, that humans could do something dragons could not: connect without force. Word of the bond spread beyond the training grounds. Other colonies, other planets, even distant systems sent observers. They came with fear, expecting chaos. They left with questions, seeing a human girl who had earned the trust of a war dragon without a single weapon or command. The galaxy had always believed strength meant control, power, and fear. Elira and Kareth showed something different: patience, understanding, and quiet courage. Some of the older trainers whispered to one another, voices low with awe. "We have been blind," they admitted. "We thought humans could never matter here. We thought only strength counted. But maybe we were wrong." Elira did not hear most of the whispers. She only noticed Kareth's steady breathing beside her, the soft shifting of scales against stone. She spoke softly, "You don't have to fight. You don't have to follow anyone else. You can choose." The dragon blinked slowly. Its massive head nudged her shoulder. That single movement carried more meaning than 100 commands. The scientists began a new line of study. They no longer looked for hidden powers in Elira. Instead, they watched how her simple presence affected Kareth. Every gesture, every calm movement, every quiet word had an effect. The dragon's stress levels dropped. Its heart slowed. Its muscles relaxed. It was learning something no machine or command could teach. Officials worried. Could humans really influence dragons in this way? Could a human lead without commanding? Could a small girl change what generations of war planning had built? The questions swirled, but no one had answers. Only observation. Elira and Kareth continued their quiet routine. The sun rose over the field, casting long shadows over the dragons, the trainers, and the curious spectators. Kareth would follow her footsteps. He would sit beside her. He would listen. And she would speak, softly, gently, and without expectation. For the first time, humans were not just observers. Humans were not just weak by comparison. Humans could teach dragons patience, understanding, and choice. They could be more than warriors, more than servants, more than prey. They could be something the galaxy had never seen before. Elira felt the weight of this truth quietly. She did not feel proud. She did not feel important. She only felt aware. Every small action mattered. Every kind word mattered. Every quiet presence mattered. Kareth and she were creating a bond, not because of strength, but because of understanding. The trainers finally admitted it openly, though with hesitation. "This is beyond our control," one said. "We cannot command it. We cannot predict it. And yet, it works." Elira looked at Kareth. He lowered his massive head, almost resting it on her lap. His eyes were calm, trusting, curious. The young girl smiled faintly. "Maybe humans were never meant to be what the galaxy expects," she whispered. "Maybe we are something else." And in that quiet, simple moment, the galaxy began to wonder what humans really could be. Not just weak creatures trying to survive, not just small observers of greater power. Humans could connect, humans could teach, humans could inspire trust where fear had ruled for generations. And Kareth, the young war dragon, waited beside her, showing the first step of a new future. The day of the demonstration arrived. The training ground was crowded with officials, trainers, and spectators from distant colonies. They had heard of Kareth's choice, of the human girl who had tamed a war dragon without commands, weapons, or fear. Many came expecting chaos, a display of danger. Instead, they would see something no one had thought possible. Elira arrived first. She walked calmly across the field, her small boots barely making sound on the stone. Kareth followed, not behind her, not in front, but beside her. The trainers tried to keep order, but the dragon ignored them. Every eye turned to watch the young girl and the massive creature moving together. There was a quiet tension, a mixture of fear and wonder in the air. The lead trainer stepped forward, trying to regain control. "Kareth, return to formation." His voice was firm, commanding. He expected the usual obedience, the instant response every war dragon had shown since training began. Kareth stopped and looked at him. Then, slowly, it shifted its massive body and turned toward Elira. A hush fell over the crowd. The trainers whispered anxiously. The officials leaned forward, uncertain. This was no normal test. Kareth was choosing, not obeying. Elira stopped and knelt on the stone. She looked at Kareth and spoke softly. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to. Stay if you want. Leave if you want. It's your choice." Her voice carried across the field, calm and steady, but not commanding. The dragon blinked slowly. Its golden eyes scanned the trainers, the officials, and the crowd. Then, deliberately, it lowered its head to Elira's shoulder. It did not growl. It did not roar. It simply rested there, showing a quiet, unspoken decision. The lead trainer's hand trembled. He realized that Kareth was not rebelling. It was making a choice, one that no human had ever expected. This is impossible, he whispered. A dragon, choosing on its own. Spectators could not look away. They had seen dragons obey, fight, and follow commands without question. They had never seen a war dragon act out of trust or understanding rather than fear. Kareth had done something the galaxy had never witnessed. One of the officials stepped forward, nervously. This cannot be standard procedure, she said. Dragons do not choose. They obey. This is dangerous. What if it decides to attack next? Elira shook her head, still kneeling beside the dragon. It won't. I'm not asking it to do anything. I'm just here. Her eyes were calm. Her presence alone was enough. Kareth nudged her gently with its snout, a soft gesture of agreement. The trainers tried again. Move away. You must return to formation. They gestured, shouted, and even tried to use control devices. Kareth ignored them. It stayed with Elira, massive wings folded, tail still, eyes alert but calm. The crowd murmured. No one had seen a war dragon defy orders like this and remain peaceful. Elira spoke again, softly, but the words carried far. You can do what you want. I will be here. I will not force you. Kareth's eyes met hers. Then, slowly, it rose to its feet, but it did not leave. It stepped beside her, towering, yet protective. It was not aggressive. It was choosing. The realization struck the lead trainer. All his life, he had trained dragons through fear, through commands, through repetition. He had never thought a human could lead without control, could inspire without fear. And yet, here it was, right in front of him. Kareth had made its choice, and it had chosen trust. The spectators were silent, eyes wide. Some whispered to one another. It's choosing her, one said. A human has earned the trust of a war dragon. Another shook her head. I thought humans were weak. But maybe, we are stronger than we know. Kareth lowered its head slightly, brushing against Elira's shoulder again. She smiled faintly. You don't have to fight. You don't have to obey anyone. You can be yourself. The dragon blinked slowly, as if understanding. Its massive body relaxed. Its wings stretched slightly, not in aggression, but in ease. The officials began to record everything. This was not just a test anymore. It was a lesson. A war dragon had chosen, not out of fear or habit, but because of quiet trust, presence, and understanding. Humans could influence without commanding. They could lead without control. They could inspire trust where fear had ruled. Some trainers shook their heads, still uncertain. This cannot be practical, one said. War dragons are meant to fight, not choose. Another replied, maybe that is the problem. Maybe we have trained them wrong all this time. Maybe humans were meant for something else. Elira stayed kneeling beside Kareth. She did not speak loudly. She did not shout or command. She only stayed. She only listened. And the dragon stayed, beside her, choosing her. The sun shone low in the sky, casting long shadows over the field. Kareth's massive body reflected the light, scales glowing faintly. The crowd began to understand the truth. Strength was not always power. Strength was sometimes patience, understanding, and quiet courage. Elira looked up at the lead trainer and smiled faintly. You don't have to control everything, she said softly. Sometimes all you need is to listen. Kareth nudged her gently again. It was a simple movement, but it carried more meaning than words. The demonstration ended without conflict. Kareth followed Elira off the field, choosing to stay with her, not because of fear, not because of orders, but because of trust. Officials and trainers slowly realized that something important had changed. Something they had never thought possible had happened before their eyes. In that quiet, powerful moment, the galaxy began to see humans differently. Not as weak observers, not as pawns of stronger creatures, but as beings capable of forming bonds no machine, no command, and no fear could force. Humans could inspire choice, respect, and trust. And Kareth, the young war dragon, had chosen. The days after the demonstration passed slowly, but the story of Kareth and Elira spread quickly. Observers from every colony, every planet, and every training station shared the tale of the human girl who had earned the trust of a war dragon without weapons, without commands, and without fear. The galaxy had always believed that strength came from power, from control, from force. Now, people began to wonder if they had been wrong. Elira returned to the training grounds each morning, always the same calm presence. Kerith followed her, walking beside her, ears twitching, wings relaxed, tail swaying gently. They did not march. They did not fight. They simply existed together. Observers watched quietly, many taking notes, many only staring. They had expected danger, but instead, they saw connection. The trainers and scientists held long meetings, debating what this meant. Some were afraid. Humans are influencing dragons, one said. If this spreads, we cannot control the war fleet the same way. Another shook her head. Perhaps that is exactly what we need. Perhaps humans have a way of shaping dragons that force never could. Elira herself did not speak in the council rooms. She had learned that her role was not to command, not to teach, but to show by example. The galaxy had never seen humans like this. Humans who were not leaders by power, not rulers by strength, but leaders by presence and understanding. And the dragons noticed it. Kerith noticed it. Others began to notice it too. One day, during a routine observation, a group of young dragons approached Elira and Kerith. They were smaller than Kerith but still powerful and trained to fight. They stopped at a distance, watching. Elira sat down calmly, not moving quickly, not making sudden gestures. Kerith shifted slightly, a signal that all was safe. The young dragons blinked, uncertain. Then, slowly, they edged closer. They did not attack. They did not challenge. They simply watched and learned, showing that even creatures bred for war could see another way. Observers began to understand the lesson. Humans had something no dragon had: patience, empathy, and quiet courage. Humans could form bonds not by force, but by trust. This was not weakness. It was strength. And it was a new kind of power the galaxy had not recognized. The lead trainer, once proud and certain, walked the training field alone one morning. He watched Elira kneeling on the cold stone, Kerith resting beside her. She spoke softly to the dragon, not giving orders, only sharing words. And Kerith listened. The trainer realized, with a weight in his chest, that everything he had believed about control, strength, and power needed to change. Humans were not tools or weak observers. Humans were teachers, even without realizing it. Elira noticed him watching but did not look up. She spoke to Kerith, "See? They are learning too. They just don't know it yet." The dragon blinked slowly and shifted closer, brushing against her shoulder. It was a gesture of understanding, and the trainer felt a small, unfamiliar warmth in his chest. The galaxy began to see humans differently. Systems that once refused to involve them in dragon training now invited them. They did not ask humans to command, not to fight, not to control. They only asked humans to be present, to observe, to show patience and understanding. And dragons began to respond, quietly, calmly, in ways no one had expected. Elira and Kerith traveled to other colonies, showing the power of trust. Each time, officials and trainers prepared for trouble. But nothing came. Dragons remained calm beside her. Young dragons learned quickly that humans could be allies without force, friends without commands. The galaxy began to take notes, slowly changing its perspective. In council rooms, discussions shifted. Perhaps humans are the missing link, one official suggested. We have relied on fear for too long. Perhaps we have underestimated the quiet strength of humans. Others nodded, hesitant but intrigued. They began to see that strength could be gentle, powerful, and patient. It was not loud. It was not violent. It was human. Elira never asked for attention. She never wanted reward. She only sat beside Kerith, showing that choice, trust, and calm presence mattered. Kerith, in turn, stayed with her, guiding other dragons with example rather than aggression. Together, they formed a model of what humans could be. Not conquerors. Not weak observers. But beings capable of inspiring change quietly and deeply. One morning, the lead trainer stood by the field and whispered to himself, "I thought humans were fragile. I thought we had to control everything. But she has taught us the truth. Humans are more than we ever believed." He watched Elira and Kerith as the sun rose, casting golden light on scales and hair alike. It was a simple scene, but it carried the weight of a new future. Reports from other systems arrived. Dragons were calmer. Training was changing. Humans were no longer seen as small, powerless observers. They were teachers, companions, and guides. No weapon or command could replace the quiet influence of presence and patience. Kerith's choice had sparked a revolution, not of battle, but of understanding. Elira smiled quietly one afternoon as she watched a young dragon mimic Kerith's calm gestures. The galaxy was learning what she had known all along. Humans were not meant to control by fear. Humans were meant to connect, to teach, and to inspire trust. And that was stronger than any weapon the galaxy had ever built. The war dragons were no longer just creatures of battle. They were allies who could choose. And humans, small and patient, had shown that choice was the most powerful force of all. Kerith nudged Elira gently, reminding her of their bond. She stroked his massive head, smiling faintly. Together, they had shown the galaxy a truth no one could deny: humans could be more than expected. Humans could change the universe quietly, without weapons, without commands, simply by being themselves. And in that calm, quiet moment, the galaxy understood. Humans were not just part of the story. Humans were the future. The young girl and the dragon walked together across the field, side by side, as observers and trainers looked on. The lesson was clear. Strength was not just power. Strength was patience. Strength was understanding. Strength was human. The galaxy had learned something new. Something quiet. Something unstoppable. And Kerith, the young war dragon, had chosen.